Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to an all new, very, very special live broadcast of what we're calling the new Gold Rush. This is how to build your list for free and grow your audience with a podcast. What's really exciting is I've got a couple very special guests on here today with me to share some really, really amazing inside tips. For many of you guys, this is a little bit different than our normal kind of webinar format. We've got a couple different guests. We're really going to take advantage of having them here and just pick their brains on how they built such amazing businesses in such a short period of time. So I think what's really amazing, and you'll hear very briefly about their stories, but you're talking in a couple months, you can build a business out of a podcast. And so a couple things here that you're going to take away from today. So we're going to completely explain what a podcast actually is. And the really cool news is that it's actually easier to get started with a podcast than one might think. The other thing is that you're going to uncover and realize that if you're already putting out content, whether it be audio or video, you can actually take what you've already done in the past with a little bit of editing, and you may already have the groundwork and the content for a podcast. It's just another place to put it. We're going to explain exactly why podcasting, what it is and why you really don't want to miss this opportunity, because it's really fun, being in the internet marketing industry it's kind of funny. It's like, for me, it's really, going on, 4.5, 5 years, but it's actually kind of a long time to be really studying trends in internet marketing. And what's so crazy is that I had no awareness about what a podcast was. I had heard of it, but I had never even experienced one as a listener. And what's interesting is that, over the course of 12 years being an entrepreneur, I've gotten really good at being to see trends. And the part of the reason, I don't get into it a ton, but part of the reason why I became a Facebook marketing expert is because I saw the trend line. I saw where that was going, and everyone was trying to figure out how to market on Facebook, and I seized the opportunity. Right now, with podcasting, what's really crazy is that, I just kind of started researching it and learning the industry. It's only really been about, maybe 3-4 months. And I met Michael O'Neill and John Lee Dumas and a lot of the big names. And what's crazy is the more and more I got into it, the more I realized that this really is, the new gold rush for online marketing. So the great thing is that this is going to be applicable for you if you're an entrepreneur. If you're a solopreneur, you might have a huge big box brand company. No matter what your business is, every single business needs to connect in social, right? Every single business needs more leads. And podcast, all it represents is it's an opportunity to build up your audience, to get you more leads, ultimately to drive in better brand authority and positioning and bring you more revenue. It's just been, wild to, to go to the New Media Expo with Michael O'Neill and hang with Bryan Kelly and Greg Hickman and all these cool people, and out of all the different forms of media. And this is one of the biggest events, for, new media and blogging and internet marketing. And out of all the different forms of media, blogging and podcasting and online marketing, social media marketing, that podcasting was the topic that got the most buzz. Everyone's talking about how this is the new gold rush. Now, the crazy thing about a gold rush is that once everyone, think about the actual gold rush, right? Everyone went west. Everyone was panning for gold, and the people who got there first obviously got rich, right? The same thing is happening right now, where this thing has been going on podcasting has been around for years and years and years, but it's hit a point that Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point, right? So it's hit this point of critical mass where it now has like consumer adoption. As Michael O'Neill's always stating, they are putting, Stitcher Radio in all the 2014 new cars. It's just hitting wide appeal because it's so convenient. And I'll have these guys come on and talk about exactly what is a podcast and what does that really even mean. But at the end of the day, it's hit wide appeal. And now we all need to, be aware of it, because the opportunity is now to really dive into it and capitalize on it and build up that traffic source. So the outcome again for today is you're going to know what it is, how to actually get one started, and literally get it started. You could even start before the end of the month, and how to get that new traffic. And you're going to hear part of the why and hear some of the stories how these guys just got started and they're already crushing it in such a short period of time. I'm also going to share our launch strategy, which I think is going to be really cool because you're going to kind of see behind the scenes on why we're making some of the decisions we are. Like, why are we doing a video podcast and audio? So there's some really cool ninja tips. And then also, how you can ride this, what's called the new and noteworthy wave. And what's interesting about that is that's Apple and iTunes literally giving you free traffic. They're handing you an audience. So as long as you're clear on what you're passionate about, you've got a plan that we can, if you can figure out what you're passionate about, or if you have a business that you already love and what you're doing, we can give you a plan today. There's no reason you can't get started and build up an audience really quickly. So I'm going to shift gears. We're going to bring on our very special guests, and I just wanted to also say to you guys, how many of you have actually listened to a podcast? Could be on iTunes, could be on your phone. Just give me a yes in the chat box, and I just kind of try to get a lay of the land and see how many people have actually listened to a podcast to date. Okay, so we got lots of yeses. All right, so we may have attracted the folks that are into podcasting as it is. So, all right, we're probably like 80% have actually listened to one. Okay, and then how many of you guys type in, if you have a podcast, just type in, I have a podcast. I'm curious how many people actually have a podcast, their own show. Okay, cool. So we've got many folks do not have a podcast. Okay, perfect. So a couple special guests here we have today. We've got a really, really good friend of mine. I'm going to jump over to his website. And guys, I want to really encourage you to, if you're interested in this topic, it's all about modeling. It's about plugging into seeing what's working. These guys in a short period of time have built very successful podcasts and businesses, and success leaves clues, and their shows totally rock, and they're very different styles. One's primarily one's audio with the Solopreneur Hour, and then we've got Bryan Kelly with video. But log on, subscribe to their shows, and get to know how they do it, and start to really investigate and start to really research what other people are doing. That's one of the first steps in figuring out how do you want to build your show. So first guest, we've got Michael O'Neill from the Solopreneur Hour, job security for the unemployable, my good friend, total rock star. What's going on, my brother?
Hello, Mr. Nick. How are you, buddy?
Doing good, doing good. You sound good over there. It sounds like you've got a good mic and a good rig, good setup.
Oh, really? Do I sound like I'm on my gear? Because I'm on my gear.
You've got sexy voice, radio voice, extra bass.
Ew. Sweet. That's what happens when you get the good stuff. You get sexy radio voice.
I love it. Well, hey, we're gonna do quick intros. So, give us the story. So, I mean, in less than, let's call it less than 2 minutes, how getting into podcast, and just give us some of your results. I think that's going to be part of the why. Like, why is this so amazing for you, and how it ultimately changed your life, gave you a whole new business.
So started the Solopreneur Hour in August of 2013. I'm actually not quite to my 6-month mark yet. It's in a couple of days, and have had about 250,000 downloads of the show. It was nominated as Best New Show of 2013 by Stitcher Radio, which is funny. I'm looking at my website, and you can't really tell that. That should be on part of my banner. I don't know why it's not. But the overarching thing is that I've built a big list and credibility, and for me, it's just been a place. I've had all this bottled up knowledge that I've learned and hustled over the last, say, 20 years of being on the internet. I started in 1994, and this is the first vehicle I have that I can really take everything I've ever known, which is I was a professional musician for a long time, so I knew a little bit about like recording and that kind of thing. Huge fan of stand-up comedy, and then seeing people how they train. Like, I really study trainers and stand-ups. And then this internet thing that was supposed to be a fad has seemed to have caught on a little bit. And so I take all those things and combine them into this show where I get to help other people that are kind of struggling and not struggling, but wondering what they're going to do with online business, and have found themselves unemployable. And I help them find means to take their skill sets and turn it into an online business.
Well, that is awesome. And overall, I mean, so you've been at this for less than 6 months, nominated for Best New Show in 2013. And so, tell us just for all the new folks out there that aren't on podcasts, how would you actually define what a podcast is?
It's like a radio show. It's an on-demand radio show that you can listen to either on your mobile device or you can listen to on a website. That's what a podcast is. They're typically 20 minutes to 2 hours, typically, unless it's Joe Rogan, and they're like 3.5. And they can either be interviews, like long-form interviews, like mine are, or they can be training, like really dedicated training, like a lot of the stuff that you like to do on your webinars, or they can be completely like little snippets of people's careers and have a structure to them.
Awesome, awesome. And so after getting started, you're close to the 6 month mark. You know, tell us about just what the audience building, like what has happened by having your show, building your brand. I mean, we were catching up over a beer this past week, and I mean, how has that led to revenues for you? And you're about to lock up some really big sponsors. So I guess what I'm looking for is give them the why start the podcast. So it's not just the audience, but like what kind of revenue or business opportunity exists out there.
There's a lot of different ways that you can make podcasting into a career. Like you said, I'm very close to just a couple more things have to fall into place, and I can legitimately say that the podcast can be a six-figure business within 6 months if I get a couple more things locked down. So part of it is, the first part is, if you get enough downloads, then advertisers will want to pay you to advertise on your show. So it's a very traditional advertising model. The second thing is, once people have heard you and you've established credibility and you're good at what you do, you're good at a subject, people want to continually learn from you. So they'll be in a coaching program, some sort of group mastermind. They'll hire you for private coaching, and there's money there. So those are three real ways. And then the other thing is, even if you don't have a huge audience yet, you can start out and sell affiliate programs. So, Bluehost for web hosting. I can send people right to my Bluehost link when I'm on the show, and if they sign up for Bluehost, I get $95. I can do that with audible.com if they want to get an audiobook. So you can instantly do that, and as long as you find something that you're genuinely interested in, I always like to tell people, if there's a thing that you know so well that you could start talking to me and bore me off my stool because you could just go for hours, that's the thing you want to podcast about, because that's going to be this really natural way for you to speak as an expert about a certain subject, and you'd be surprised that you'll find an audience of that subject. So basically that's how to monetize. I'm not sure if I completely answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
Great.
I mean, I think overall, I mean, the fact that within 6 months, I mean, you're just about to, be with sponsorship, be able to lock up, a 6 figure a year business doing what you love. So, I mean, with our company, Life on Fire, I mean, we are all about, how can you do what you love every single day with passion? And what podcasting represents, I think, for all the folks that, maybe they have a corporate job, or maybe that they're doing something that they don't love, podcasting is a way where, people always say, well, I can't, I could never just monetize the topic that I love. Like, how would I make money with it? And what's crazy is that if you get really clear on what it is that you do love to do and what you're passionate about, and then like last night, Lee Dumas and I were sipping on some scotch, talking about all this stuff, and we were and one of the things that he said is, figure out, just like you said, Michael, figure out what you're passionate about. Then he said, figure out what you're good at. If you picture those as two circles that overlap, then the area that overlaps, like that could be the topic for your show. That could be, something that you can make as a show. And, by just joining, getting a podcast out on iTunes, that will help you get the audience essentially close to for free as you just put it out there. So what's cool is, I just want really to drive home that it really is possible to build a complete business around what you love. And shoot, even if it started as a hobby, right, once a week, I mean, you could totally do that. So we're going to dive into I'm just going to rock a couple more intros, and then we're going to dive in. We're going to take you guys kind of step by step how you can look at setting up the show. We're going to give you some resources and tips, and then we're going to walk you all the way through to strategy, so that by the end of this, session here today, we want you guys to not only have a good understanding about the opportunity, but to be able to actually take some action on it and feel comfortable moving forward on it. So, one of our next very special guests is a fire starter. Also, our call our coaching clients fire starters, and we've got an elite fire starter elite. His name is Bryan Kelly, and his website and show is called What the Speak. And welcome to the show, my main man, Bryan Kelly.
Hey, it's good to be here. And yes, what the speak, man? What's going on?
What the speak, dude? Well, I'm excited because we're gonna drop some serious, tips on this session here today, and it's been a lot of fun diving into your show. And again, guys, if you're looking at the screen, just check out the site, dive in, get to know these guys, and so give us your background, how why you started your show, and how'd you end up with what the speak, and then we're gonna dive back into content.
So let's see here. Back in 2006, I started a podcast for another blog that I'm a partner in. And at that time, nobody knew what podcasting was. And we did it for about 3 years. And we had over 30 episodes. So, we were averaging right around one episode a month. And it was a pain. I mean, it was back in those days, it was a lot more work, and the audience was a lot smaller. So we kind of abandoned that. Flash forward to this year, about halfway through the year, I had a lot of people that were asking me, just because of my background, my experiences, for help, tips, tricks, all kinds of inside information on how to give a good presentation. And I thought, you know what? Instead of taking this one by one, I would love to do some type of web show, a podcast, what have you, to share with a much larger audience some really great conversations with amazing people who are professional keynote speakers, performance coaches, neuroscientists, you name it. I've got all sorts of people with lots of different backgrounds who come on the show and talk about their personal journey, their personal story, and uncover some good nuggets. So, I had this idea, and I thought, okay, I'll start it as a web show. I really like the idea of video, and then I was like, couldn't avoid this surge in podcasting for all the reasons that Nick's kind of already touched upon, as well as things you may have already heard yourself. But podcasting has taken off, and so I thought, all right, I want to do this, but I've got the video element. So what am I going to do? And kind of explored that and said, okay, well, I definitely need to have an audio version of my podcast, and really worked through the issues of trying to figure out how am I going to distribute this video version of it. There's not a lot of information. There's really no helpful tips. Everything that you might be able to find online is kind of convoluted and not clear. And so we said, all right, we're going to try this. And we took a step of faith, put it in iTunes, and didn't know it was going to work as a video podcast until the day that it showed up and Apple approved it. And since then, it's only been 2 months. We just wrapped up our 8-week window on the new and noteworthy kind of portion or highlight of iTunes. And we're still, right now, we're averaging over 1,000 downloads per episode, which I'm pretty ecstatic about. And we're already also talking with potential sponsors at this very early stage, and I think it's just because we have a highly targeted niche audience that not a lot of podcasters are hitting, and so there's just kind of a fertile opportunity for us to capitalize on that right out of the gate.
That is so sweet, man. And I think what's really cool is as we get into how to choose the type of show you want to have and format, it's Bryan's got a really great story and just how he ended up with video, and how he's choosing to differentiate. So we'll dive back into that, and so the other guest we've got here on the line here today, we're going to intro real quick, is actually right here on Bryan's website. So we've got Greg Hickman, the mobile marketing master himself, and we're going to pop up Greg's site. And so it was really great. I mean, it's just been a lot of fun. Michael O'Neill has been a good buddy, bringing me out to New Media Expo and getting me connected with all the top dogs in podcasting, and a lot of when you're launching a podcast, as we're going to share some of the launch strategies, a lot of it has to do with networking and getting to know the people in your industry. So that's a really key element. It's been a lot of fun getting to know Greg, and actually, and Greg, this may be I guess a compliment through a compliment, but hanging out with John Lee Dumas, who's got one of the top podcasts, and he just couldn't say enough amazing things about you. He's like, hey, happen to know that Greg's going to be on your show tomorrow, and this and that, and just everyone around this guy loves him. He's just got very generous with his time. He's absolutely brilliant with mobile marketing. So, my man, Greg Hickman, what's going on, brother?
Not much. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
It's a little bit soft, a little bit low volume.
Is that better?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Cool.
So, dude, give us the quick version on just how you got into podcasting and where you have ended up as a result.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started my podcast actually started as a video-based interview show. Surprisingly, I had been following David Siteman Garland from The Rise of the Top, and he did this whole program called Create Awesome Interviews, and I'd always been told I was good at asking questions. So I was like, oh, well, what's a way for me to meet more people doing really cool things in mobile so that I can build better relationships? So it was like purely selfish reasons, and started interviewing all these people that I thought were doing cool things, and it was the side-by-side interview set up for about probably 30 or so episodes, and built amazing relationships. This was probably leading up. This was like 6 months leading up to probably 4 to 6 months leading up to New Media Expo of January of 2013, and went there, and that's when I met John, and he made this comment about just people listening to podcasts while they're in their car, and I was like, oh man, I'm doing 45-minute long interviews, like video, and that is probably the least mobile friendly thing, and I'm here talking about mobile. So I was like, I'm going all audio only, and my numbers skyrocketed from there, which were awesome. I'm still super niche, so I'm not like getting crazy hundreds of thousands of downloads like John, but I mean, it has created such amazing opportunities for me, which is why it's exciting, which is why I think it can be exciting for anybody who's really starting a podcast. I mean, Cabela's, which was like I was working full-time for a job, like they found me through my podcast. So like at the time, I was interested in the opportunity, and I'm no longer there, but I mean, they're like, we've been listening to your podcast, like your stuff when it comes to mobile. We actually just opened an office in Denver. Do you want to lead the entire mobile team? I was like, wow, that's an interesting opportunity. And they found me through my podcast. So, just opportunity after opportunity has presented itself to me. Tons of speaking engagements, just from being even guests on other people's podcasts. I mean, being a guest first on Internet Business Mastery got me to be on Pat Flynn's show, which got me to be on Amy Porterfield's show, which got me to be on Social Media Examiner, which led to me speaking at Social Media Success Summit, which led to me speaking at Social Media Marketing World coming up here next month. So, like, all of that would have never happened if I hadn't started my podcast. And, I wouldn't even be talking to you guys. So definitely opened a lot of doors.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's really interesting is, so I'm just going to do a quick recap just overall is I think podcast, the beautiful thing is that if you already have content, oftentimes I feel like podcasting can be it can sound so complicated, but once you get past some of the tech, and there's resources that we've got resources we can easily give anybody to do the back end of the tech. But what's so crazy to me is that all it really is taking content, whether you already have it or whether you're shooting it new or however you're creating the content, it's just another place to distribute the content. So right now we've got Life on Fire TV. We put that on YouTube. We put that on our blog. We share it on social. Literally all we're going to do is take that exact same content. We're going to be a little bit more purposeful and methodical with it, but we're going to probably have a new intro and a new outro. And all we're going to do is we're going to syndicate that content to one more place, this thing called Libsyn. That's what publishes and pushes out the content to iTunes and gets you on the chart. So what's cool is when, we think of podcast as like a radio show and it is, but it's just one more place to put the stuff that you already have, and you can build up the audience. And I think, with we talk about this gold rush and the opportunity. I mean, Greg totally pointed out the branding opportunities. And what's so crazy is I've asked one, a guy with a lot of authority. I asked, if I could interview him. This was before I, was even talking about my show. And quite frankly, he said no. I was the number one affiliate for his company, a couple of years ago. And I was kind of like, man, really? Like, I'm only asking for like 30 minutes. Like, I felt like I maybe had earned it, right? And then we're at the airport, and then Michael O'Neill and I happen to bump into the same gentleman, and then he's like, they meet for the first time face to face. Now, I think they tweeted, they kind of knew, they definitely knew, of each other, what have you. And then all of a sudden, he's like, hey, I'd love to have you on my show. Okay, great. And I'm just like, wow, there's something really interesting where if you have, quote, a show, there's a whole brand positioning. It's to the effect of, when someone is the author of a book, right? It's to that effect, probably times 10. It creates this authority that, you've got to be good at what you do because you've got your show. And I think from a networking perspective, branding, as Greg pointed out, it's huge. So a lot of doors opening up, and then all the traffic and stuff you can get is key. So we're now going to
can I share two things real fast?
Yeah, for sure.
So kind of to your point of just the way that people want to consume content. So if any of you guys listening have ever checked out the Internet Business Mastery blog, they are also a very large podcast, and they do audio blogs mixed in with their content, mixed in with their normal podcast episodes. And I'm luckily to be friends with these guys, and they shared some numbers with me that I think are pretty mind-boggling. So like, they just literally, if they write a blog post, editorial, they record themselves reading it, call it an audio blog, submit it to their Libsyn feed, mixed in with their podcast, and they shared me with 3 posts last year, some of their top posts, and the actual page visits, so like the blog reads, would be like maybe 2,700 to 3,000 unique page visits. The same content, audio format, just them reading it, recorded it, submitted it to the podcast, 28,000 unique downloads. So Whoa. It's just a whole different way of people wanting to consume content. And they got feedback saying, oh my God, I didn't even know you had a blog. Like, thank you so much for distributing content in a way that I want. So just know that it doesn't have to be like a fully produced show either. You could literally just re-record yourself reading your blog post. And then John Loomer, who does Facebook stuff as well, he implemented this just the other day, and he goes, I've noticed a 20% increase in time spent on my site just by implementing the audio blog, like the audio blog concept. And people are listening from his site. So it doesn't need to be this fully produced, only podcast episode. Just think about the way that people want to consume it, maybe just because it's audio.
And that's a really cool point, because it's almost like you're allowing consumers you're allowing people to consume your content in a way that's more convenient. It automatically streams to their phone, and there's so much benefit to that. And then I think outside of that, just by the nature of getting onto iTunes, getting the new and noteworthy, as we're going to dive into, is going to it's the equivalent of ranking on the first page of Google, or running ads. Basically, it's like you're getting this free publicity out of iTunes. And so with that, let's dive in, and guys, it's kind of like a little bit of a mosh pit. We've got 4 of us here, speakers, if you will. So feel free to just kind of interrupt and share your 2 cents. But I'm going to try and kind of pass the mic around, if you will. But let's just talk about, I feel like O'Neill kind of touched on, getting started, kind of figuring out what your passion is, what you're good at. You can make a podcast out of that. What's really exciting is that for someone that has a passion but looks at it and says, well, Nick, I don't really have the credibility. I only love fitness. I'm not certified, or I'm not this or that. Well, what's so cool is, John Lee Dumas with Entrepreneur on Fire, I mean, the dude's netting 6 figures a month, netting. This is crazy, and he puts his earnings online, and he's only been doing it a little over a year, right? So now, granted, he's kind of the anomaly. He's is very good at it. Timing was great, all that good stuff. But even if you were a tenth of that, right, 10 grand a month, and that's what we're seeing is very possible with all of our special guests here today. I mean, these are the kinds of businesses that they're building in a very short period of time, and so it's like, as someone that has a passion about something, if you have the interview style show, you don't need to have gobs and gobs and gobs of credibility. You can actually leverage the credibility of others. So I wanted to dive in and just talk about the different types of shows. So O'Neill, you talked about one person being, almost like the focal point, sharing their own content. Then you mentioned that there's the interview style show, and then yours is kind of like a very kind of interview style, but it's a little bit more conversational. What would be feedback from any of you guys as to how to choose the format or which ones that you guys prefer and why?
Yeah, so I'll jump in on that. So like with my show on What to Speak, the format is very much that interview style because it's easy for me to systematize. Basically, it's the same rough framework of questions that I'm asking every single guest. And because I made the commitment, out of the goals that I set for myself, I said I'm going to do a 3-day-a-week podcast, and I want to have 2 months worth of content in the queue. So if I stopped right now today and didn't record any interviews, I could go till the middle of April and be fine with that. So that was my personal approach and some of the reasons why I wanted to do that. But it made it very easy for me to show up to an interview, so to speak, and with very minimal research and background and understanding of who the guest is, I can dive right in and really uncover some amazing information related to their background, their experience as a speaker, whether they're a public speaker or a professional speaker. And there's just some just brilliant stuff that comes out of these discussions. And it's because I've learned how to pull those out and work within that framework. But it's not me sitting down every time before that interview and trying to figure out, what do I want to pull out of this conversation, or where do I want to go? It's already thought out for me in advance. Personally, for me, has worked out very well with that systematized approach. I know Michael's got a completely different approach, which is really cool, and one of the reasons why his show is so appealing. But yeah, for me, that's how I look at it.
And I think one thing I'm kind of extracting.
Yeah, I take it very.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, and so in your approach, and so Michael, and so yours is more kind of off the cuff, a little bit more conversational. But I think overall, like I think one of the takeaways for you guys is that the benefit of having an interview style, whether it's regimented like Entrepreneur on Fire or like What to Speak, or it's more co-host with Michael O'Neill and it's more conversational. At the end of the day, the benefits of the interview show is you aren't necessarily the one creating the content. You're kind of like a museum curator. It then becomes your job to get the best friggin' speakers possible for your niche. And what's great is Bryan, to be different, he went down and drilled into professional speaking, right? So he's got a little angle. So that gives him a reason to, if he just had a podcast that's just general about entrepreneurship, it's going to be hard to get on someone's stage, right? Because it's kind of been done. It's kind of, John Lee Dumas has got it locked up. It's, having the twist, the angle or the twist as he calls it, as, it's actually a spin about, how to kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch. It's like with Greg, the fact that he's the mobile guy, someone can say Greg Hickman and then say, what's the first thing that comes to mind? They'll say mobile marketing. Or like for me, I always used to brand myself with Facebook marketing. So I was a Facebook guy. So it's nice to kind of zero into your passion, into your skill set, and allows you to kind of have the differentiator. And then the beautiful thing is when you have an interview style show, you're curating that content. It is then your job to bring on the best speakers. So you could maybe, even if you're not the best interviewer, if you're not even the best communicator yet, all those things are learned skills and behaviors that you'll pick up as you go, and just focus on learning and getting better every day. But that's what's cool, is you can get started fast and get started easy and do something that you love. Now, if you shift gears now to give a different perspective, in my case, I'm a guy that, I do business coaching, of Facebook marketing. For my format for the show, what's so interesting, and this is stuff I've pulled back from all of you guys, is you have to be consistent. That's one of the biggest things. So like having a show that goes out every Monday, it has to go out every Monday. But what's interesting is that drilling down deeper, that you can have flexibility from show to show. So I could have a show on Mondays where it's 10 minutes of Nick on camera. I'm sharing like something I've learned or something that's really cool, or I'm training or coaching. And I'm going to weave that into mine so that I'm kind of building my, credibility with them as like a coach and expert, and, position myself that way. But then in addition, I'm definitely throwing in the interview style show because I not only want to showcase other people, which really helps for content because you can't just create like infinite amounts, right? So it's really cool to feature other people. But I think the last benefit, as we'll touch on when we get into the launch strategy, is that by featuring other people's content, that's going to not only be great for your listeners, but it's going to really help your promotions because, if I've got, Michael O'Neill on a show and you'll hear a little bit about how he does Twitter, what if he shares that show to his audience? Or like last night with John Lee Dumas, he said, dude, one of the best strategies is when you have someone on your show, right? He said when he had Seth Godin on, he let he recorded it, let's call it 2 months in advance, but when the thing actually went live, he sent Seth Godin and his staff an email that said, hey, I'm so excited, our show's going live today. If you want to share this gift with your network too, here's the links to do so. And, shoot, if Seth Godin tweets it or shares it, you can see how that's going to create cross promotional opportunities for you too. So I think if anyone would like to hop in, I think right from the get go, it's kind of like Michael was saying, figure out your passion, figure out what type of show do you want, and I think at this point we want to think about is it you as the focal point, interview style, kind of candid, a mixed bag of each. I think there's opportunities to be different and do very short shows. Like I was gonna, do like a 15-second show every day. Like you can get completely creative. Model what's out there. Look at your niche. Immerse yourself in podcasting. Like I've been listening to everyone's shows, and it's creating all these ideas. And then once you have all these ideas, just figure out how are you going to be different. And I think that'd be a really cool topic to dive into, which is how to differentiate. So, Bryan, I know you got some cool stuff on this, but Michael or Greg, any tips about when you're coming up with the idea for your show? What are some good ways to be different?
This is Greg. I mean, for me, like I saw no one talking about, obviously my topic, no one was talking about mobile. So, I thought that was different. There weren't many people, at least, I guess for me, the only one that I saw doing it that was mixing solo episodes with interviews was like Pat Flynn. And it was interesting because I had started off all interviews, and now I only do interviews every once in a while. And I did that for a couple reasons. One, as I originally started the show because it was like I want to build these relationships with people, and that's when I realized there was an audience following me, and that's when I started saying, oh, well, maybe I can turn this into something bigger. And I didn't want to always just be like the host because I had been involved in the mobile space for a long time, and as I would interview these people, I'd realize that in a lot of cases I knew more, at least the same, if not more, than some of the guests. So I was like, I could be teaching this stuff too. And then when I actually took the Cabela's job, it was just easier for production standpoint. Like, oh, you need an episode like for the next couple of weeks, like recording it myself and not having to worry about anybody else made it a lot easier. And now, surprisingly, the solo episodes, I mean, usually do better than the interviews, pending the guests. And the challenge for me with guests was, and this is kind of different from someone like a John or even Mike. Like my people I was interviewing, they didn't really have big followings, so like on social, so like I wouldn't get any really added benefit of them sharing it with other people. So like there was no kind of like amplifier from them just having a huge audience. Like if I had Mike on my show and he was like, sweet, I was on Greg's show, like that would be 1,000 times more effective from like a marketing and shareability standpoint than the people I had. So kind of when I realized that I wanted to take this to a bigger mission and have a bigger business around it, I knew it wasn't going to get amplified by having the guests that I had on it. So I just started doing my own episodes.
Nice, cool. And so guys, recap, it's like step 1, choose your passion. Step 2 is choose, I would say step 2 might be, drill down, research what other people are doing. Step 3 is, all right, let's decide on that format. So this, I think, is going to be a real fun one to throw up. So we've got Michael O'Neill, audio guy, Bryan Kelly, video guy, but also has an audio version. And Greg, are you still doing video, or just you're straight audio now, right?
So I do straight audio for the podcast, but I do a weekly video series. It's like 8 minutes long. So cool. A little mix, I guess.
All right, so let's let's help people figure out, should they do audio? What's the benefit of audio versus video?
Well, if I can jump in on this, Michael, the numbers, I mean, I probably, as Greg can say, that the numbers for the people that would download an audio version versus video are probably substantially different. I mean, probably, I don't know. Is it 10x, Greg? Is that how much more downloads would you get for your audio version? And actually, you probably can answer this too, Bryan. Like, what's your audio do versus your video in terms of downloads? Same episode.
Mine
So
was
like,
definitely 20, like at least 20x.
Yeah.
well, see, and that's what's funny, guys. And Michael, I'll let you expound upon this a little bit more before I dive in. But my numbers on the video are higher than the audio,
Wow.
and I'll explain why in just a sec. But Michael, I want you to keep going with kind of your perspective.
Well, that's really surprising. That changes my perspective a little. I just think that if this is really about building a large brand, I think you can definitely do both and have the video version. I just know that most people that are consuming my show, they're on the treadmill or they're walking their dog or they're they're in the car, and none of those things are conducive to watching a video. So all of a sudden, instead of just competing against other podcasts and maybe what's on the radio, you're competing against Game of Thrones and Netflix for video content. So, and by the way, I look at this by as a podcaster. You're no longer it's not you guys versus me and versus whatever. It's not versus at all, but it's now you're up against Howard Stern and you're up against, I mean, the biggest broadcasters in the world, because that's essentially people only have so much time to consume content. So if you're providing them good content, you're going to be taking away from them, listening to Jon Stewart or something like that. And I'm pretty adamant about that, which is Bryan and I are diametrically opposed on interview initiative in that way, like in terms of researching. I'm a very researcher kind of guy.
Well, I think overall, I mean, what's interesting is I think on one camp you've got, so from kind of pulling it out of what you guys are saying is you've got audio is a bigger sea. Audio might be the ocean, right? However, the ocean is very crowded. Let's just call it's really crowded, right? So there's so many more podcasts. There's a lot of competition in there. So you can kind of you almost have to scream and shout a little bit to be different. I feel like when Michael O'Neill, when you look at his show and why he chose yellow and black for his logo, because it stands out. He's got a show that he did a lot of things to stand out when he launched, and we'll talk about some of these things. And so it's like with audio, how to be a little bit different, and it's I think it's probably safe to say, I mean, there's more traffic in audio. However, if you launch correctly, I mean, I think Greg is going to point out that you can capitalize larger and faster in video in other ways. So there's different opportunities, but ultimately it's going to come down to what makes you comfortable. I mean, if you can just sit there and be really, really comfortable just on a microphone, I mean, that's easy for you, then that's cool. Because if it's not fun for you, then it's not going to work. And if you don't ever want to do something, don't do it, because you're never going to, if you feel like you're having to push yourself to do it, you're like, crap, I got to make a video and I freaking hate being on video, then that your choice is made right there. So I think audio, definitely there's a big sea of prospects, if you will, or listeners. And then I'm really eager to hear Bryan about, your choice to go video. And what I think is really freaking cool is that with Bryan's strategy, he's actually combining video and audio and kind of double dipping. So I'm really interested to hear your perspective on that.
So the whole thing with the audio and video, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this, is that audio is significant. Don't think that you should just go video because of what I'm about to say. It's two of these things working together that for me has been beneficial. So, and part of the reason why is, like, I'm talking with sponsors right now. And what I'm doing is I'm not giving them, oh, here's my numbers for my video podcast and here's numbers for my audio podcast. It's the same freaking show. One has a visual component to it. The other one is just the audio stripped out. And the way that the show is produced and put together is you don't have to be watching it. You can listen to it, and you're not going to miss anything as a part of that episode. And so I combine my numbers when talking with sponsors, and I get a little bit more oomph than if I just had one over the other. The other thing is that, yeah, right now, everybody has easy access to an audio podcast. I mean, I listen to Michael's show while I'm on the treadmill. And, for the people that are in my audience, I get messages all the time through email and whatnot, where they're like, Bryan, I love your show. I watch it when I'm at home or when I'm in the office. I watch it on the train on my iPad when I'm commuting to work, whatever it is. But I also like how I can download the audio version to listen on my iPod while I'm working out or running or doing chores around the house on a Saturday afternoon. And to me, that's the power of being able to leverage both of those things. Now, the other thing is this. We did a webinar yesterday on kind of the down and dirty aspects of video podcasting. And one of the things that I revealed in that was that what I'm doing with video is very interesting, because I had a discussion with Cliff Ravenscraft, who said, Bryan, do not do a video podcast. Nobody's going to watch it. Nobody wants to commit 20, 25 minutes to sitting in front of their computer watching an episode. Just do audio. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's actually very valid. All the stats that he recited to me, I was in full agreement with. And so about a week later, I had a conversation with Lee Dumas, and John was like, I completely disagree with Cliff. Bryan, you need to do a video version of your podcast, because Lewis Howes and I were just at iTunes. We met with the head of iTunes.
Hey, Bryan,
yeah,
I'm so sorry to interrupt. However,
no
do you
problem.
mind if I do something pretty cool here? So we have a it's kind of like wedding crashing. It's webinar crashing going on here with Lee Dumas himself. After all this talk about the guy, I'm gonna unmute him and let's hear the story from the man, the myth, the legend. What's up, man?
Hello? Am I live?
You are live, big dog.
Awesome.
Dude, it's a podcasting mosh pit. That's what we're gonna call this thing.
Wow, I'm really excited to drop in. I had 8 interviews today, and my last interview got out about 30 minutes early, and I'm like, I'm gonna check out what these knuckleheads are up to. So I had to jump on, and I really want to kind of keep going forward in just a couple minutes that I have with this story. That our man here, Bryan's sharing, because I think it's so important that Cliff told him not to do a video podcast. He told me not to do a 7-day-a-week podcast. And Cliff, believe me, has given both of us incredible information about podcasting, and it's helped both of our businesses. But listen, Bryan listened to his gut. I listened to my gut. We put our blinders on, and we did that one thing that we knew would work. For me, that was 7 days a week. For Bryan, that was video. And that's a great message. That's a great lesson to really put out there, is that follow that intuition. You know what your audience is going to resonate with, because probably you're your own avatar.
That is really cool. Trust in the gut. So while we've got you here, so let's talk for a second about, Bryan describes it as, what was his twist? Bryan's show, he goes from doing the interviews, instead of it being audio, he's doing them on video. They're black and white. They're cool. So he's got his twist. It makes him different. O'Neill's got the casual co-hosting atmosphere. They go for an hour, right? So there's different formats and twists. But what's your advice for someone that's just getting started, and how to figure out how they should differentiate?
So we were out in Las Vegas, the lot of us, and we had a blast out there for obvious reasons. And I was given one of the last opportunities to speak at the very last day, only for the diehards were still there. Most people have gone home because they lost all their money in Vegas, and they were hungover, and you name it. And I was in that boat. I lost a lot of money, and I had been partying pretty hard. But I got up there, and I gave my presentation, which really was focused on 2014 being the year of the niche podcast. And Nick, I can't stress this enough. For people out there, I mean, look what Michael O'Neill has done with Solopreneur Hour. He's come on to a fairly red ocean type area with an audio podcast interviewing entrepreneurs, and he has differentiated himself by making it so different, so unique. And that's when I first came in. That's how I differentiated myself, is doing that 7-day-a-week. Bryan's differentiating himself by doing the video in such a high-quality way. Nobody else is doing that. And then, of course, Greg Hickman's, he's just become the mobile guy so quick. I mean, nobody else goes to anybody else for mobile because he's the guy. So everybody's found their niche, and everybody that's listening to this webinar right now, that's where your focus should be. What is your niche? What are you going to be different for? And that's where the power is going to lie in 2014. Because, like, you know, just to kind of zero in on Michael O'Neill, like, he's really created an incredibly loyal audience in a very short time because of his unique strategies. And you listeners on this webinar can too. You just need to focus on what your niche is, what you want to dominate, and then really niche down and just crush it.
I love it. I love it. And while we've got all you guys still here, let's just drill down into a topic. Which, you know, if we kind of established that, you know, bringing on a guest to interview, there's a lot of benefits to do that. So, you know, in most cases, you know, even if it's not, you know, always interview style, like in my case, I'm going to do kind of like a mixed bag with it. But there's a lot of benefit to doing that. And then, so, you know, shoot, I mean, you know, John, you've had Seth Godin and some huge celebrity names, Michael O'Neill. I mean, you've had Adam Carolla and huge names. You all of you guys, you know, have had some big names where, quite frankly, that scares a lot of people to think like, oh man, I'm a fitness trainer. How could I ever get Jillian Michaels, right? Or shoot, what if you're a chef? Right? What if you're a chef and you love cooking and you want to get the Iron Chef on, right? Or Emerald, and bam, right? I mean, what's so cool is that when you have the show, you've got a little bit of that credibility. You can get the niche expert in your field. You could be a golf expert. I mean, no matter what the passion is, that's what I love about this industry. That's what's so much fun about it. But how do you actually reach out and authentically get these people on the show? And how have you guys done it?
Well, I'll just jump in here for a second. I don't want to hog any more mic time because I actually do got to jump off. So
cool.
For my next interview. But real quick, you know, for me, when I launched Entrepreneur on Fire, I had no online presence whatsoever, Nick. I had no broadcasting experience whatsoever. I was so super ground zero. And I just decided to come up with that USP, that 7-day-a-week podcast. And so I launched it. I had some success in New and Noteworthy. I had some success with downloads. And then I timed things right. I kept my ears, my eyes open. Tim Ferriss launched his book, 5-Hour Body, or 4-Hour Chef. And then Seth Godin launched his book, The Icarus Deception. The timing was right. I was, you know, checking in the Amazon new releases and was searching the stuff and saw the opportunity, reached out to him and said, Seth, Tim, I would love if you just spared 25 minutes, non-invasive, audio only on Skype. Just jump on a quick call with me, share your journey with my, you know, growing audience of entrepreneurs, which is exactly who you're targeting for this book that you're creating, and I will share that with my audience, and it's only going to be for 25 minutes. And I got a yes from both of those, and again, this is within 3 months of launch. So it wasn't like I had this big show before I approached them. I just had a platform that I timed things right and seized opportunities.
Dude, that is awesome. Well, hey, I know you got a jam, but really appreciate you know, popping on, sharing a couple nugs with us. And dude, love it, guys. If you're not on Entrepreneur on Fire, check it out. Download the show, and we'll talk at the end. But you gotta write some reviews and hook these guys up for sharing all this good stuff. So thanks, man. We'll looking forward to having some scotch with you soon.
Absolutely, Johnny Walker Double Black. And guys, thanks for letting me crash. Sorry to interrupt, and keep rocking it.
Awesome, man. Cool. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
I have a very recent story about this, and so as far as getting good guests on, there's a couple techniques. If they're internet celebrities, you start with one. You get and slowly build a relationship up with one person. In my case, it was Pat Flynn. And I wanted to be memorable. I wanted to ask very concise questions. I had very precise questions for him to answer. And I did that. And once he answered, I sent him an iTunes gift card. So I wanted to be memorable to him. Then we met live. And I reminded him that I was this person. Not that I sent him a gift card, but I was this person. And could we meet for coffee? So I did that. Once that happened, I said, hey, would you mind giving me an interview or an introduction to Amy Porterfield? So now there's a little trust there. And I met Amy. then I met through Amy. I've met a bunch of people through Amy. I've met a bunch of people through John, who I met also through Pat. And like it really has expanded. But so that's what you do if it's an internet celebrity. If it's like a genuine celebrity, I always go through the second tier person first. So in the case of Adam Carolla, I got to know his producer. And I just started chatting with his producer. It turned out we were both from Philadelphia. There was rapport established. I said, hey, would you mind giving me an intro to Adam. So I got a couple seconds with Adam, and I said, would you be on my show? And he said, yeah, when is it? Yeah, I just schedule it with blah, blah, blah. So that's how that happened. But literally last night on the way home from Anaheim, I was traveling with our friend Dave, and one of the 4 like really big guests that I want to get on the show this year is Hines Ward, who was a former receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2-time Super Bowl winner, Ironman triathlete, won Dancing with the Stars. Like, has really made a really great solopreneur career out of being an athlete. And I said, Dave, do you have any connections in that world? And he said, yeah, hold on. And he calls up Mike Tomczak, who threw Hines his first touchdown catch on the Steelers, also was in 2 Super Bowls, quarterback for the Steelers, quarterback in the NFL. And we started chatting. I'm like, oh my God, I totally want to get him on the show. Well, he has direct access to Hines Ward. So I'm going to get him on the show and interview him in the hopes that he'll go through the experience and then introduce me to Hines Ward, who I can actually get on the show and be really psyched to get one of my 4 big guests. So that's kind of what I do, is I go through the second, another person often to get to that bigger person.
That is so cool, man. And I think it's what's just so, what's awesome about you, and I think for all you guys, with how you're doing this, is you've got the guts to go out and to do it. I think one of the biggest blocks is the ask, right? It's the getting the courage to actually reach out to these people, because we've been programmed our entire lives to be fearful around hearing no or getting rejected. And what's cool is at the end of the day, it's not going to kill you. Like, who cares? Just put it out there, and if they say no or if they ignore you, it doesn't matter. Keep following up, and so I think that's a big piece, and use that technique that Michael shared. And I want to have Bryan Kelly share a tidbit about how he gets his guests. And then, Bryan, if you're okay with it, I'd love to, when we send out the replay, I'd love to actually share a couple of those email templates that you shared with our clients, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
Awesome. So what's your nugget on this?
Yeah, I was actually at a cocktail party last week, and somebody was like, dude, you're crushing it with the guests that you've got on your podcast. Like, how are you getting these people? And I was like, I just ask. It's really that simple. Just ask. We got a radio show tuning in.
I think so. Another crasher.
Yeah, another crasher. All right, so what I do is all of the guests that I've had is strategically through email. People that I've never even met before, I just send an email. So I've got a template for a cold email. I've got a template for a referral, because a big thing, like Michael was just talking about, is getting a guest from a guest. So many of the people I've gotten on the show are through that introduction with somebody that I recently had on the show. And then my third template that I've created is all about reaching the gatekeeper, which again, Michael kind of alluded to as well. But in the email, it's all about a very catchy, concise subject line that's going to get the attention of that individual you're emailing, or if it's their assistant or whoever that's monitoring their email, it's going to not just get scanned over, it's going to be opened and looked at. And then you want a very short email that essentially gives them a compliment right out of the gate. Dude, I think you're awesome. I saw you speak at blah, blah, blah. Would love to get your insights and record it in a video podcast that will be published. And, here's some of the past guests that I've had. So just giving a little bit of social proof. And every single time I've been able to get that. The only person I've had turn me down so far for a interview has been Marie Forleo, and she's just super ass busy, I guess. But right now I'm even actually talking with the folks that manage Jim Collins, who is a keynote speaker that charges $100,000 for a keynote. Very, very busy guy. And so we're talking right now with them. And also we've got Brendan Bouchard, who's a huge, visible personality right now out there, who does some amazing speaking, and we're again going through that process of talking about when the best time is going to be with his schedule. And it's all been through email. I haven't even had to pick up the phone. So email and referrals.
This is really, really good points. Email, referrals, just getting out there and doing it. And at the end of the day, it's always, 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 always what's in it for me. That's what that person's thinking at every moment, right? And that's as we're all wired the same way, you guys are thinking, what's in it for me when you hop on here today, right? What's the outcome? What are you going to get out of this thing? When that email hits their inbox, they're thinking, what's in it for me? Do I have to read a lot? Do I have to, do something for this? Can you make their life easy? Can you make it simple? Can you appear very professional? And, it's kind of like Bryan said, there's like a subtle little name drop, like his other guests include, for us, as many of you guys know, we spend a ton of money to get Gary Vaynerchuk as our keynote speaker. Well, we also leveraged his time, so we have his content is kind of the backbone of our Life on Fire TV as we launch ours, and as we go out there, people are going to be like, they'll have no idea who the heck I am, but I'm going to leverage his name. We call that the anchor client strategy. So we use that to, get an influential client is really good for business. That same thing, just as these guys are pointing out, the same thing is true when you're getting other interviews. As you're, get the big name. If you, go out, just ask the people that scare you. Whoever scares you the most, ask them. And then once you get that one, you can easily reference that, when you're reaching out to others. And like these guys are saying, have someone on your show, you'll build some rapport. When you wrap up, ask for referrals, and boom. Greg talked about, he started his show and he's already been bounced around all over, speaking literally all over the country in just months. So really cool. I want to touch on a couple things really fast. We had a handful of people asking about, all right, so I'm interested. I want to get this thing rolling. I love what these guys are saying. How do I do all that research to get rolling? So if it's one, figure out your passion. Two, what's your research? Three, what's your format? Two being the research. What's your feedback on just how to research other people? Like, walk us through, is it going into iTunes and searching podcasts? Is it, pulling out your phone and downloading the app? But give us some feedback, guys, and just, how they can kind of do some recon and see what's out there, and how to do some research on what to model and find shows and stuff.
So this is Greg. I can go first, but I'm actually really interested to hear Mike's response on this also. But like for me, my audience is for the most part beginners. So I actually try to do little research because then it really kind of puts me in a place of as close to the listener as possible. So like, I know who they are. If they wrote a book, I read the book, and I have questions coming out of the book, but like, super in depth about what they've done. I actually try not to go too deep because then I ask questions that are coming from a place that maybe the audience doesn't even know that. So, and I know Pat Flynn actually talks about this a lot too. It's like, go in fresh because then you're going to ask questions that are very kind of from the gut and really just honest and, more likely to be what types of questions your own audience has. So I would urge the listeners of the show right now to say, well, who's my audience? And, if I do too much research, is that going to not be helpful for them? Or like, how can I ask questions that they would be asking and then do whatever is going to get you to that?
Well, I with the procrastinator in me certainly loves the fact that if you're going to have someone on your show to interview them, to not have to do the research is that's quite a time saver.
Yeah, it is helpful.
That's cool. All right. Okay. Cool. And I think
I'm not saying no research, just like very like obviously background, what they're doing, why they're on the show, sort of stuff. But from like a tactical perspective, like if I were going to interview you and I knew everything about Facebook, yeah, go ahead, Mike, you go.
My take on that is that I think the question, why don't you take a few minutes to tell us about yourself, is the laziest hosting interview question in the history of podcasting. And the reason why is because if you can get that information off of their about page on their website, you should be able to steer them through just the parts of their background that your audience will find most valuable. So when you just say, yeah, just tell us about yourself, you're literally handing over the power to the guest versus being the translator, being the one who's sort of the Rosetta Stone and helping your audience extract the data from that person that they will find most useful. So what I like to do is, instead of like, tell us a little bit about yourself, which you'd never hear on any professional television or interview show in the history of the world, you would say, so you went to Boston University when you were, in 1985, and you got, a degree in neurophysics. Talk about how neurophysics has changed, blah, 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 blah. And that will that will set a premise for that guest, but it'll also tell their story without them having to go, well, I went to Boston University in 1985 and I did neurophysics. It's just lazy interviewing, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Cool.
And
And
just to clarify,
yeah.
I'm not saying do that. Yeah, I'm not saying do that, and that's a really great point. But like, I mean, like, so my shows are sometimes technical when it comes to like mobile marketing tactics and the technologies that people are using, and I don't like to ask too many advanced questions and having those plotted out, because that's like, those are more advanced questions. With my audience being
Agreed.
beginner, I mean, I guess my point is I always try to make it. I put myself in a position where I'm the audience member and I'm a beginner, and I think the more research that I do, the more advanced questions I'm going to ask, and then I'll be blowing over some of the things that the audience might have been asking.
Well, and then it sounds formulaic too, and you don't want to go that. Like, I won't, if somebody sends me questions ahead of time to be their guest on their podcast, I won't read them. Like, I don't do that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. So I think
No.
we've got some questions just surrounding so if they're they're going they're going the direction of interviewing guests in their niche, and they've got some differentiators why their show's going to be cool and different. And guys, as far as like learning how to actually interview other people, there's not a, I mean, I think one of the best ways is to do some research within the podcasting industry, right? So like, find other shows and then do what's most natural for you, and just the more, it's kind of like if you're an onion, the best version of you as the interviewer and as a speaker, presenter, on video, audio, whatever that may be, is it's like continually peeling back the layers of the onion, which is all of our limiting beliefs. It's all of our, like, who we think we should sound like and stuff. We just want you to, at the end of the day, just be authentically you, and just let that come out. But to learn how to do that, it's kind of like O'Neill's always saying, like, he's been a huge fan of stand-up comedians and Howard Stern, and and being a student of the game. So if you're doing research to kind of learn to get better, also if you're doing research to figure out how you can be a differentiator. So by research, I mean, if you get the go to your app store on your iPhone, get the actual podcast app, look at the top charts in the upper left, click on the categories button, and start to see what people's shows look like. Look at, what do their icons look like? Michael's is yellow and black. You've got some people put their faces on there. Like, the top 10 shows for audio and video. What are the trends? Like, what's working, right? So subscribe to shows, start to listen to what other people are doing, so you become aware of what other people are doing. And to me, this is one of the best ways to figure out how you're going to do your show, is to do research on other people, model what you feel is model what's working with other shows, and then go far out of your way to make yours so much better and or different. They're not always going to be better, but it'll be at least different, so that you stand out. So that's Bryan Kelly, being black and white and on video. But the cool thing is the guy's got audio, so the audio completely, he taps into both worlds. Yesterday on a call with our private clients, Bryan dropped some ridiculous knowledge about video podcasting. And Bryan, what were you saying about sponsorship? How you're actually bundling your, people are asking about how to monetize, and it's like, you're actually bundling your audio plus your video, and you're able to get sponsors, and you're kind of double dipping. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, so it's basically, I've got two shows in essence, but the bottom line is it is the exact same show, and we're able to kind of leverage both of those by saying, look, if you sponsor an episode or a block of episodes, these are the numbers that you're looking at, and it's been something that if I just had the audio version, it just wouldn't be the same. It might not have the same impact. So. I do want to say something for all of you out there, though, that are seriously considering doing a podcast, and this whole idea about interviewing skills, or even just getting on the microphone and talking, or being on camera with a video and kind of speaking into that. It's just like giving a presentation or public speaking. If you haven't done it before, you're going to suck. You're going to suck just a little bit. It's get comfortable with that. But just like when you're giving a presentation, It's all about being who you are, being authentic, be a real person, and show your passion for that topic that you've decided to niche down to and focus on for your show. That's what's going to connect with people who want to listen to you, that want to watch your podcast if you do video. And you're going to get good. If you do it consistently, you do it often, you'll get better and better and better. And there's plenty of things. Michael's got some resources on being able to improve your interview skills, and listen to how other people are interviewing. Watch guys like Charlie Rose or anybody else that you see on TV that's doing interviews, and you can start to model that. But just get comfortable with the fact you're not going to be good if you haven't done this before.
So true. And
Charlie Rose is a great point, by the way, Bryan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charlie Rose is great. Charlie Rose, go to YouTube and listen to Howard Stern interviewing A-listers, because he doesn't do all the crazy stuff when he's got some big A-listers on, and he's a brilliant, deep interviewer. What's her face? Barbara Walters is really good. Jon Stewart is really good. Love Charlie Rose. He's a really good option. And just remember that when you're speaking, if I can make the stand-up comedy analogy, it is if you're a good comedian and you relay the premise of the joke to your audience. Chris Rock's like, women can't go down in lifestyle. They can't go down in lifestyle. That gets the entire audience into this energy of, okay, now they understand that, and he's going to give 10 examples of how women can't go down in lifestyle if they date some guy who has less money than the previous guy they dated. And it's funny every single time because the audience understands the premise. If you can set up how you speak and how you try to relay your information and really lay context around it, and your audience can completely understand the premise and why it matters to them. Remember, you're the translator. You're the Rosetta Stone. If you can do that, then any example you give them on whatever the topic is you're talking about is going to work. That's the punchline, that what you're saying is going to land every single time. And that is a technique. That is an absolute interview skill that you can really learn if you sort of commit yourself to listening to others and really dissecting what they're doing.
Dude, love it. You guys totally rock. And I know we're north of the hour. We're about 75-minute mark, and we're going to. We really only booked these guys for an hour, so I just want to give a big thank you to Greg Hickman, who's got to jump off, Michael O'Neill, who has to jump, Bryan. I'm not sure what your timeline looks like for me. I'm going to keep cranking through, so I've got some really cool launch strategies and what we're doing. I want to kind of show you guys behind the scenes. I've been really fortunate to spend a lot of time with these guys and go through how we're going to launch. I've got so many crazy tips. I've been researching this thing like crazy, and so I'm going to share some really cool stuff and some nuggets about how to launch, how to monetize, and then so we'll keep this thing cranking. We will have a replay for you guys if you've got something butting up against this. But I do want to say a huge thanks to Michael O'Neill, Bryan Kelly, and Greg Hickman. And guys, if, anything you want to add before you jump off?
Just thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Nick. This was great. It's kind of fun to do a panel like this. We should be doing something like this every week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, the mosh pit. We're gonna get the band back together soon, and we'll definitely we'll be going through. And we're gonna share with you guys too how you can hop onto their shows, and if you're gonna model some of the best people in the industry. So we're gonna share how to write these guys reviews and all that kind of good stuff towards the end. And so, guys, thanks again for everything. You rock. Thanks for all the tips, and we're gonna forge ahead and dive into launch strategy. So we'll see you guys.
Thanks, man. Later.
Take care.
All right, later, dudes. All right, so cool.
Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
If I got like 15 minutes, so I can still hang around for a bit if you.
Dude, I love it. I love it. So we're gonna maximize that. So we got Bryan here. So I'll have you dive into. So at this point, just a quick recap. We've got, all right, what's your passion? All right, how do you research? Pull out your phone. Get the podcast app. Get on iTunes. Look at other shows. Start to just listen to what other people in your niche or your industry are doing, and then choose. Are you going to do video? Shoot, why not have the audio with it? Or maybe you're just going to do audio. Next step is, what's your format? Is it going to be interview? Is it going to be once a week? Maybe you are twice a week. Maybe you only do a 5-minute show once a week, right? So just decide on that. Pick a date at when you're going to get rolling. I do think, too, we've got some questions coming back. I want to share a resource that Bryan has shared, Michael has shared. It's the guy, Cliff Ravenscraft. This literally, instead of us just getting drowned in the technical about how to actually make this thing live, this link I just put in the chat box, it's also here on your screen. Just bookmark this thing. He goes through these videos. You can knock them out in just a little over an hour, and it will teach you exactly the gear, the stuff you need to do to get set up. So to me, that is tech. That's not like the highest and best use of our time, especially with Bryan having 15 minutes left. I want to give you guys strategy. Strategy is what moves the needle. Strategy is what can make you financially free and get you to that life on fire. So that right there is a really, really killer resource that can get you going, get you set up. So now that we've got that dialed in, let's jump back to Bryan and say, all right, we've got an idea for our show. We know that our logo is going to look like X because we've looked at all around what these other people are doing. We've got our differentiator, our twist. So Bryan, tell us about, now that you've got that stuff set up, how do you launch this thing? How do you capture the traffic from New Noteworthy, and how do you make this thing a huge success from the launch standpoint?
So there's a couple things you want to really think about. Now, don't let these things I'm about to tell you bog you down and make you hesitate from starting, because one of the most important things, you just got to dive in and you just got to do it. You just got to take that step and make it happen. But you also don't want to do that blindly. You want to think through, at least at some level, strategically about how you're going to do things. I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I heard podcasting was the thing to do and I'm just going to do it, and they don't capitalize on this 8-week window that you get. Everybody gets, every new podcast gets in the new and noteworthy section of iTunes. It's one of the most highly visible places for a podcast in iTunes. And what happens is, as a new podcast, you get extra juice. We'll call that an official term. You get extra juice from iTunes, where they're going to boost your visibility during that 8-week window right when you launch. Well, the biggest mistake that most people make is they launch with one episode. So they just put that in their queue for with their media host at Libsyn, which is the one we all recommend. That's Libsyn, by the way. And that's what they do. And then the next week they put another episode in, and the week after that another episode. And before you know it, they've only got 8 episodes in that 8-week window, and they've not been able to maximize it. So the recommendation is you want to have at least 5 episodes recorded, edited, and done, ready to go right when you submit your podcast to iTunes for distribution. And what happens is, when you've got 5 episodes and somebody sees you in that new and noteworthy section, they're going to click on it, they're going to listen to episode 1, and they're going to be like, hey, this was pretty good. I want to see what else this person has. And they go click on the next one, and you've got 5 of these. They're going to download all 5 episodes, which is very, very likely. And all of a sudden, if you get 300 people that first week or two that come across your podcast, you're going to go from having 300 downloads with just 1 episode to 1,500 downloads with the 5 that you've got there already ready to go. So that really boosts your numbers, and is one of the key things that will help you rise in the charts while you're in that new and noteworthy section.
Dude, that is such a crazy, crazy powerful strategy. I mean, it really is like, and when you share this with our private clients, I mean, this is a complete game changer when you're launching a podcast. And, you literally have 5 times more downloads, which is good because you're getting 5 times more opportunity to build a rapport and a relationship with that listener. So that's obviously cool for stickiness factor and retention. But to your point, that right there, there's a little bit, it's kind of like if you think about back in the day, right, or in general, people are always trying to game the system on Google, right? People are trying to manufacture and invent and think about, how can I get my website to rank on Google so I get all the traffic? Well, iTunes is no different, right? So we're not trying to game it per se. These are just tactics that are going to help you optimize it. Let's call it optimize, so that you can ensure that you're going to get massive, massive free traffic and audience. And so just by simply having 5 shows to start, you're going to have 5 times higher downloads. To Bryan, to what you said there, I mean, that's going to get you on the chart and push you that much higher. And what's so cool is, like, so I brought that up last night with John Lee Dumas and said, hey man, Bryan had a killer idea. Start with 5 shows in the can, and to multiply your downloads by 5, push up in the charts faster. So that's literally iTunes. Picture iTunes, and Apple putting you on their top of their charts, right? You want to get up there, and that's going to get you free publicity, which is how we build free audience with this, which is so cool. And so then he says, Nick, you want to know the next step? He's like, this is some ninja stuff here. And he said, start with your 5, right? And to Bryan's point, also, your most recent episode, you want to be really cool, right? So, for example, Life on Fire TV, we already have more than 5 episodes now. So if we started with our 5 episodes, John had some cool tips where make episode 00, where that's your about episode, right? So that's your first one, and that's where it's you, whether it's on camera or audio, you're talking through what the purpose is of the show is. So you want to let them know again what's in it for them, right? So you're explaining, hey, Life on Fire TV, this is the purpose of this show is to give you mindset training, marketing training, to bring our network to you, to bring the best people in the entrepreneur space to you, to help you, get it so that your life is on fire, meaning you love what you do every day, you're making more money than you could ever even dream of, and you've got time freedom. That's the outcome of this show. You hang with us for 6 months and you'll get that, right? So that 00 show is to educate them on what your show is about. You can explain what you do for your products and services gently, and then you'll have your other episodes, and then the most recent one. So for us on that first launch day, our episode 5, if you will, is going to be our crusher, right? We might position our Gary Vaynerchuk interview as that one, because if you notice that when you go on your phone as a podcast, and if we subscribe right now to Bryan's show, What the Speak, you'll notice that this show, episode 34, is at the top, right? So couple things, John Lee Dumas pointed out that you want to always number your shows, because if you have a lot of, if you're on show number 34, this means that Bryan is established. He's done 34 episodes. The average person quits after show number 7, right? So this gives him clout, but it also, it allows people to see chronologically what's going on. So the show at the top, they might watch that one first. So you want to make sure that you have a strong episode there, and to use Bryan's strategy where you start with 5 in the can, bolster your numbers. And then John shared last night a really cool tip is that in my case, we have Life on Fire TV, right? So we're already on episode 7. By the time we launch, we're probably going to have 9. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to start with day 1, will be a Monday. We're going to have 5 episodes. Then on Tuesday, we're actually going to share another episode. And then on Wednesday, we're going to share another episode. On Thursday, we're going to share another episode until we're caught up, and then we'll publish our most current episode every Monday. And so what John was saying is, now this is, I guess we might be a little bit unique because we already have some content, but he was saying that when iTunes see you go back to back, there's some kind of behind the scenes, benefit of them seeing that your numbers are up consistently. So it's going to, help us get a lot of downloads and stuff. So that's just a little kind of a tidbit on that, but awesome, man. Well, cool. So Bryan, we totally dig the strategy on starting with 5 in the can. And then what are some other tips about how to make sure that you're crushing it out of the gate launching?
So there's probably 2 things that I would recommend, and I've got about 5 more minutes, so I'll try to be quick on it. And these 2 things are linked together. The first is, my recommendation is for you to think about not only having those first 5 episodes queued up and ready when you launch, but have a month's worth of shows also following those first 5. So get them all recorded and done. You can focus your energies then on the promotional aspects, leveraging your social media. If you've already got an email list, sharing the podcast launch with your list and driving everybody to go and subscribe and to give you a rating and review. All of those things help you get higher and higher in the rankings. So if you've got a month's worth of episodes already knocked out, you're done. You don't have to think about it. Go and schedule them out, and they'll release when you're ready. If you do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday format, get it scheduled up. If you're 5 day a week, do that. If it's once a week, whatever it is that you decide to do, just get it knocked out and scheduled. It's going to make it a whole lot easier for you. And like for us, my team and I, we're more than 2 months out. I mentioned this earlier. I could stop today, not do any more interviews for about a 2.5 window period of time here, and I'm good to go. And it makes the stress so much less for you to have it systematized in this way.
It's really cool. And guys, ultimately it's about, living a life on fire. It really comes back to, what works for you, what makes you happy. If you're going to be really stressed out and you're like sweating bullets every week because you're like, crap, I got to do a show, just take the time, get organized, like Bryan does, and shoot it in advance. And then you can just roll them out. And, you always have that buffer. For me, I like kind of, I'm shooting stuff every week. So, I'm going to be a little bit less of that kind of, I won't have that much in the can. I'll have some so I'll never be caught off guard. But, I'm kind of shooting, I'm almost trying to treat mine like a reality show. So I'm doing a little bit more behind the scenes about what's going on with us and where we're traveling and what we're doing. So my timeline's a little different, and that's cool. It works for me. So, one big thing here, I think, with Bryan, what you mentioned about when you get started, doing everything you can to market this, right? So, that's, it's, publishing the show, it's reaching out to your existing network, it's putting it on Facebook, and, if you have Twitter, it's tweeting it on Twitter. If you have other guests on the shows, it's letting people know that you'd shoot, here's an interview with Bryan Kelly from What to Speak, really excited about it. You got to hear how awesome it is, then they might cross promote as well. And then you mentioned writing reviews. So I'd like to take this time to, how do you ask for the review, and what are some techniques to do that?
What you should do is basically every opportunity that you've got. So maybe, let's say on Twitter, for example, you get someone who's like, hey, Bryan, I love this show. I got it. I downloaded it. I subscribed it, whatever it is. And they give you some type of comment, reply back and be like, hey, so-and-so, that's fantastic. Glad you like. Would you mind leaving a rating and review, and give a link, a short link right to your iTunes audio podcast or video podcast, whatever. And just ask then when they're excited and when they're really enjoying what you've got that you're putting out. You can also, in your show, mention it, but the thing to note is most people might be listening when it's not opportune for them to go to iTunes and leave a review. So that's something that you can do, but just know it might not be as effective as some of the other strategies. Also, email your list. If you got an email list with a couple hundred, a few hundred, 1,000 people, whatever it is, send a message and just give them, hey, we're number one in new and noteworthy this week. Thank you so much for your guys' support. If you wouldn't mind, if you haven't done so already, please send us an email. Not send us an email. Leave a rating and review. It means so much. There's a lot of different ways that you can ask that. I know one guy that he literally, every single person that he met in public, he would ask, hey, would you mind going and leaving me a rating and review? And he's got over 150 ratings and reviews. So, think creatively about ways that you can do that.
That is huge. And I know Bryan's got a jam. So Bryan, I just want to say, and I'll use your site as an example about how to write the review, and I'll walk through that process. And I just want to say a big, thank you. He's one of our Firestarter elites. The guy's a crusher, multiple businesses, does his podcast, and is totally cranking with this thing. And what I love about you is that this is something that is done in addition to full-time businesses doing other things. So it can be done. You're a master at outsourcing, and a hell of a trainer when it comes to communicating and presenting. So thank you so much for all the nuggets, man, and I look forward to hanging soon.
You bet. Thanks, guys. I had a blast, and know Nick will share some more good nuggets with you about podcasting.
Awesome, man. We'll catch up soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Cool. All right, guys. And so I'm going to keep forging ahead. I've got some really cool other techniques just as far as launching goes. I want to share with you guys. And then we're going to talk very briefly, how do you monetize this whole thing? And, whether it's to make it so that you can literally earn a living talking about or doing what you love, or how do you just monetize and use a podcast to supplement the business that you already have, right? No matter what that niche is. So to dive back into just your launch strategy. So you get rolling, and if you think about it now, no matter who you are, we all have contacts, right? So we've got phones, we've got people we can text, we've got email. You may not have a formal quote email list, and if you don't, you want to start building that. But you've got people you can ask, right? And so when you launch your show, you want to make sure that you let everyone know. I mean, this is like letting whether it's aunts and uncles or cousins and friends from college, you want to be proud about your show. I mean, if it's your passion, then it should be a really exciting moment. And you want to share that moment with as many people as you can. So make it a big deal. Make it, quote, like a launch party. We're going to make ours a big freaking deal. Want to know why? Because I'm like, out of all the things we do, I get so much fulfillment and joy out of working with our, private clients and our fire starters. And I love our in-person events. And that's where we're able to help create major transformation in people's lives. But the podcast is us extending our message to a very large audience, and it's really exciting. So I'm very fired up about it. So we're going to make a big deal out of it. Right now, when you're doing that, you want to make sure that they know how to get to you, right? So they got to know how to get to your show. So what's interesting is that when you get all set up, you're going to have this little link. You're going to have the ability for people to get to your show, this little iTunes link, right? So you're going to want them to what's called subscribe. So I'm already subscribed, so the subscribe button isn't right here. But the big thing is that if they just listen to one show, that's great. If they subscribe, you're kind of like getting them for the long haul, right? So you want to make sure that you are always encouraging people to subscribe to your show as often as you can. And let me just move this thing around. Okay. And so if I jump over here to the show and click on View in iTunes, we're going to launch this thing up. Now, whether you're doing this on the computer or whether you're doing this on your phone, right? Either way, this is the audio version. So I'm going to click here and click the subscribe button. Boom. I am now subscribed. And I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to these shows, check them out. And now that I'm subscribed, I can and this is when you launch your show, you're going to want to explain to people, if you have to take a screen capture, if you make a quick video like, hey mom and dad, here's how you subscribe to my show. When someone subscribes, this gives you juice for iTunes. This is what's going to help you. Now, just by you putting a show out, you're going to get what's called new noteworthy. You're going to get free traffic, whether you like it or not. The difference between someone that's going to get thousands of downloads, between someone that's going to get hundreds of or tens of thousands of downloads, is, are you going to rank higher on that new noteworthy chart? Why not be number one when you start this thing, right? So part of that process, encourage your friends, encourage your family to go to the link that you have that iTunes gives you and have people click that subscribe button, right? And once they are subscribed, you're going to get a lot of credit for that. Then also encourage and ask them to write you a review. It's so simple. Give them that same link. Tell them that they got to click on ratings and reviews. Then they got to click on this little write a review button. And I've already done it, right? So I gave him a 5-star review, and it said, this guy's an absolute rock star. Boom, and it's already submitted. So I can't write him a second one because I've already done it. So the thing, as as Bryan was pointing out, writing a review, that's like rocket fuel for your launch. The review is, think of that as like an amplifier, right? So if you can make a benchmark that in your first month with your podcast, if you got 10 reviews, that is mega, mega important. It's important for 2 reasons. Number one is that when someone looks at your show, if they see that you have 1 review, then that's going to they're going to get an opinion like, oh, this guy's completely brand new. Right. However, if they see that you've got more than 10 or if you've got 30, they're going to see that you've you have social proof, and they're going to be more compelled to want to actually watch it and plug in. Now, the other big reason, as I was just saying, is that this is the rocket fuel, that if you get these reviews as you're launching, this is going to push you up the charts. As you get higher in the charts, you start to get more and more traffic from iTunes. That traffic is what is going to set you apart, right? So, as an example, Michael O'Neill, the guy went from number 30 on iTunes, right, in his category, to number 11. How did that happen? He took the time to tweet about his link for iTunes to directly send people to his show instead of his website. He took them to the iTunes page. He went from 30 to 11, and then he hit me up this morning like, holy crap, man. He's like, dude, I had 2,000 downloads today, and I didn't even have a show. That's big. That's big. That's the power of moving up the ranks and the charts. It's free audience, free traffic. So that's a very big part of launching your actual show. Other things that you can do, you can run a contest. You can have people, anyone that writes a review and screen captures it, and lets you know, or and tells you, that goes to your Facebook page and tells you, they might enter in to win a raffle, right? So you could gamify it, you can run a contest, you can ask your network. And another big part of your launch strategy is that when you're launching the actual podcast, is you want to tie other people together. So for example, in my case, I know that when we launch, I want to be on Michael O'Neill's show. I want to be on Bryan Kelly's show. So I've already interviewed with Bryan Kelly. I've already interviewed with Michael O'Neill. I'm going to, be on Entrepreneur on Fire. We talked about that last night. That's going to be a very key thing, because they're going to be like, I'm going to be on their shows. And so since I'm on there, I'll be able to, this is Nick Unsworth from Life on Fire TV. Right? So it'll be cross promotion. So the action item for you is, as you're doing your reconnaissance, as you're kind of scoping out other people in your niche, those other shows, not only do you want to understand what they do, and you can model what you feel is working, and the other thing is, you want to build relationships with them, because you want to get, if you are really interested about, let's call it smoothies, right? Smoothie Allen. We've got a client, we call him Smoothie Allen, right? So he's interested in smoothies. So for Smoothie Allen, even if he had no credentials behind his name, but he just loved smoothies, and he started interviewing health professionals and this and that, and he became the guy for smoothies. He still wants to be on the shows of the juicing guy, right? Drew Canola. He wants to be on the show of a fitness trainer's podcast, and then he can talk about smoothies. So if you can get on other people's shows, just ask them, like, hey, I'm an expert in mobile marketing, I'd like to be on your show. I'm an expert in real estate, I'd like to be on your show. I'm a Facebook marketing expert. So you can actually reach out the same way that you can ask people to be on your show. You can do some outreach and get on other people's shows. Hey, I'd love to be on your show, and here's the value I can bring to your audience. Here's what I can talk about. So so as you launch, I'm going to be on a couple of other shows. We're also strategically getting other people on our show, and doing interviews. And the other thing is that if you've got a show that's long, so right now we're at like the 90-minute mark. We will take this content. This content, what's so great is, I love doing stuff live, because we can take your questions and we can weave them into the show, and it's a fun experience. But we're going to take this content, and this will be a Life on Fire TV episode for all you guys that are hearing this. I just want to say, what up? If you're hearing this as a podcast for the very first time, yeah, we did this thing live, because there's so much benefit to being live together. So we're going to combine podcasting, because that's always a replay, with live. So as people experience our podcast, we're going to always then promote when we do something live, because we want to combine the benefits of the two. And the overall benefit is that allows us to build an email list, and all of our podcast listeners have to then subscribe. They've got to opt in to get on a live webinar like this, and it marries the two worlds together. So that's really cool. And so for you guys, how nice is this, that it's so simple? We've taken this webinar that was easy enough to do and put together. I just brought on other experts, and now we're going to take it. This will probably be a 3-part episode, because it's long. And, as John Lee Dumas said last night, people like they like to consume and finish things, right? And, in 30 minutes is kind of a good benchmark, and they want to feel like they're getting through the episode. If they just saw a 97-minute podcast, they may look at it and say, I'll come back to that. That's kind of a monster. I don't know if I can consume that all in one bite. So break it up into 3 parts. And so for this show, we might have 3 parts go out in one day, and boom, we might get hooked up and get credit for 3 downloads in one day. Right? So the nice thing is you can break up the content and make it so that it's impactful and consumable. So outside of that, other podcast launch strategies, something that we're going to dabble with is, one of the revenue models in podcasting, just like a radio show or a TV show, is sponsors will pay for airtime, right? So there's this pre-roll that, someone might, John Lee Dumas might do a read for 99 designs. Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, and if you're interested in getting graphic design, you got to use 99 designs, and here's why, right? So that's like the pre-roll. There's the mid-roll, and then there's at the exit, and they're paying, in his case, $45 per 1,000 downloads and per show, and so there's a whole revenue model behind getting sponsors. Michael O'Neill, in less than 6 months, has gotten over 250,000 downloads. He's negotiating with GoDaddy. He's already done stuff with Audible.com. Guys, when you have a podcast, you attract big name sponsors really, really fast. That's another, another reason altogether to do this kind of a show. So, so that's an opportunity, for revenue, is with sponsorship. In my case, we've got a couple bucks, right? We've been crushing and cranking with Life on Fire. We're actually going to get on shows, and we're going to test and see what happens if we advertise on a show like Entrepreneur on Fire. How does that move the needle? What kind of numbers does that put up? Because our goal, our mission is we want to get number 1, and we want to do whatever we can to get there, and we want to take advantage of the traffic on iTunes. So another just tidbit as far as the launch goes is, as you guys are going to see, for those of you that are part of our network or our community, every time we share information about our show, we're going to give you guys kind of what's happening. We're going to be sharing our download numbers. We're going to be sharing kind of behind the scenes. And what happens is, as you do this with your audience, you invite people to be part of the experience. They're getting to see what's happening, the ups, the downs, the real true story of what's going on. And, at the end of the day, people have good hearts at the end of the day. People want to see people win, right? And I call it sharing your milestones. So when we launch and then we get to the top of the new and noteworthy, we're going to be sharing that story, and people are going to, we're going to be celebrating that, and you guys are going to be helping us get there, right? And so every step of the way, we're going to be sharing those little tidbits, those little, the little milestones. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing as you launch your podcast. Share the wins and the successes, and it's okay to share kind of the ups and the downs, right? But be transparent, be authentic, and I think pulling people into kind of the behind the scenes makes it different and fun. John Lee Dumas, he shares his income. The guy is netting 6 figures a month. I want to encourage you guys to take a look at it. You can see how he earns his revenue. You can click through, and you can see how much came from sponsorship, how much came, from him starting a mastermind, right? There's the monetization methods are, you can have sponsors advertise on your show. So typically, as soon as you have enough downloads, if you're doing about, 20,000 to, about 20,000 downloads, 30,000 downloads a month, you're talking about a 6-figure, a year business. So when you have that kind of download numbers, you're able to attract, about 10,000 a month in revenue, right? So that's for just reading, and you being the person that reads and for other companies. In our case, we've got product, so for you, right, or for the person that doesn't have products and services, if you're diving into this because you've got a passion, then that's so cool. You can be an affiliate for other people and monetize that way, right? So before you even have sponsors, you can be an affiliate and promote other people's tools. So if you're in the health and health and fitness, you could be an affiliate for a company that sells juicers. You could be an affiliate for a company that sells supplements, right? And you can get a percentage. So as you're sharing your tips and your strategies, you can monetize as an affiliate, which is the easiest way to monetize. The second way would be to build up your base and then to get sponsorship revenue. The third way would be, as you build up, or if you're already an established company, what are products and services that you can promote on your show anyway? The best way, in my opinion, to do that, and I've seen this, done on many of our friends' podcasts, is use the podcast to build up your audience, then do something live, like a live webinar where you're going to share and showcase a specific thing, and it pulls your audience. It gives them a reason to subscribe. It gives them a reason to, quote, opt in, right? We've got a really awesome video, 10 steps to build authority and dominate your niche with Facebook marketing. That's a reason to get someone to opt in. We want you to take your podcast, build an email list. Building an email list is building a real solid business with a foundation, right? So we want you to do that. And then you can use your podcast to leverage what you're doing. So if we have 100,000 fresh, new, amazing fans in our community that are listeners on our show, then you know what? When we start talking about the 12,000 square foot mansion we just rented in Arizona, which I'm trying to think, where is the info on that? I can pull it up. But basically, like if you're sharing things that you have going on. I mean, for us, we're going to use this as an opportunity to share. We do these really amazing in-person events. We rented a 12,000 square foot gorgeous mansion in Arizona, and we'll share that, right? We'll share information about that on the show, and I'm just going to pull it up so you guys can see it. So anyone that is watching live and you're not part of our mastermind, this may be reason alone. 12,000 square foot place. We're going to go out to Arizona. We're going to spend time together, and we're going to have some of the top brass in podcasting there. We're going to basically, the outcome of this weekend is we're going to come up with strategy for your business. We're going to be in a very gorgeous environment, so it's going to be really conducive just for growth and for creativity. We'll have like a professional chef there. We're going to have a fitness person there. We're going to do little like workshops and breakouts. It's going to be fun, like crazy fun. And we're going to literally live in the house together for a total of 3 days, 2 nights. So information about that, hit us up, support@lifeonfire.com. We'll get you all the info. This thing's going to crush. So basically, for this being a show, podcast, you can just share what you're doing and share your products and services and pull revenue that way too. So that is key. So that kind of wraps up, launch strategy. That wraps up monetizing from a high level. And I think outside of that, the only other topics I want to jump to a couple of questions that have come back, and I want to share with you guys exactly how we are differentiating and how we're launching, right? So for me, I got clear on my purpose, right? My purpose and my passion is Life on Fire. I want to help you and everyone I touch. I want to get the message out there. I want to help people love what they do for work. If they hate their job, if they're doing something that they feel like they're, quote, settling, that drives me freaking nuts. My mission is to help people get away from doing work that they hate, do what they love, money follows, and we'll make sure the money follows. My job is to coach them and help you monetize your passion, right? And live a great, amazing life. So I'm clear in my passion, right? I'm clear in my purpose. I then started researching other podcasts. I pulled out my phone. I started looking at, what's going on. I found people in my space. I looked at audio. I looked at video. I looked at the images. How can I make ours unique, right? So Life on Fire TV, here's the format. Every Monday, we're putting out a Life on Fire TV episode. So the episode it's going to be a mixed bag of me on camera because I want to position myself as the guy, right? I do business coaching. I want to be the guy. I don't want to always be the person interviewing someone. I want people to know that in a 30-minute one-on-one call, I can create radical change in someone's business. So I want to be the guy. So I'm going to be on camera probably 50% of the time as me. Now, 50% of the time, I'm going to interview other experts because, like we talked about here today, the juice you get from bringing other people on, being that museum curator, you are totally adding value for your audience. You're getting an opportunity where you might get some cross promotion from them, which really helps your business and your growth. And it's an easier way to create content because you're curating it. I'm not having to dream up all that content. So here's my twist, right? If I were to just interview other people just like everyone else, I'd kind of blend into the masses. The same way Bryan Kelly, he decided to do video. His is black and white Skype faces next to each other. In my case, my differentiator, and I was sharing this with Lee Dumas last night. He thought it was brilliant. Is I love video. I'm now comfortable with it, right? So I'm really enjoying it, which is cool. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the interview and I'm actually treating it like MTV Cribs, right? So with Gary Vaynerchuk, I flew to New York and we went behind the scenes in his office. That's my differentiator. I can't guarantee I'm going to do it every single time that way, but when I can, I'm going to actually go to that person's environment, their home, their office, and we're going to get a unique look at someone's life in their environment. I'm going to be rocking an interview with Lee Dumas. We're going to do it in his home, overlooking the ocean in our building, right? Luckily, I only have to go upstairs 2 flights, but we're going to be in his environment, so people get to see behind the scenes. And his eyes lit up and said, Nick, my audience is going to go freaking nuts for that. And I said, that's the thing, dude, because that's what's going to make me different. That's my differentiator. Is I'm crazy. I don't have a family yet. I'm a single guy. I can be out and about. I want to travel. Like, this is my life on fire. I like doing crazy things like that. I want to be different, and I can pull it off now. 2 years from now, who knows? Might have a kid or something. Who knows what's going on, right? I might change, but for me, that's going to stand out. And MTV Cribs was a huge phenomenon back 10 years ago. It was a huge show, and I'm going to bring that to the entrepreneur world. And when John said he can't wait to do that because he wants to share that with his audience, notice here's one of the top guys, 6 figures a month in podcasting. He wants to share this with his audience. That's crazy. That's huge. So this will give me a leverage point that will make it unique, that a guy like him, if he wants to share that could move crazy traffic. So that's my differentiator with the interview style. I'm not going to, eventually, we might have that be every Wednesday. In the short term, hey, I'm not going to stress myself out. We're going to stick with only Mondays. I'll do my on-camera show with me. We've got so far 7 shows in the can. We're going to launch with 5. We're going to dribble them out one per day until we catch up to where we were at. Then, when I have a really cool interview with someone and it's in their environment, I've got probably 20, 30 people in San Diego I'm going to tap into. I'll travel around. I'll see who's cool in that market, interview them, and we'll dribble those out as we go too. Now, the interesting thing is that is video that's on camera. We're also going to pull out the audio for that. The audio is going to be a separate show. So we'll have Life on Fire TV as video, and we're going to have Life on Fire TV parentheses audio. We're launching those at the exact same time. This is very, very, very strategic. This has been battle tested by a lot of these top podcasters. We're, again, fortunate. We're doing all this and sharing this with you guys because, I've been fortunate to get all this inside info, and now you're getting, to enjoy it as well. So that's why we're so excited to share it with you. And so we're launching them at the same time because we're going to get the benefit of the audio juice on New and Noteworthy. We're going to get the video juice on New and Noteworthy, and we're going to use those to combine and grow. So in the audio version, all I'm going to do is just do a different intro. And that's simply me at my microphone, or even you could even use your phone and just say, hey, what's going on? This is Nick Unsworth from Life on Fire TV, and you're watching the audio version. And, here's what happened today. Here's a quick synopsis. And, oh, by the way, if you ever want to see on camera, be sure to go to xyzlink.com so you can check out the on-camera version, which is always really cool because, next week's episode, you're going to see, you're going to see what's in Lee Dumas's fridge, and it's not what you think, right? So, you can point people from one, but at the end of the day, you want to have one as your main jam, right? So Life on Fire TV is our big dog. Like the video, I want to be number 1 in video. I want to be that guy. That's my goal. It is a much more open playing field than is audio, and that will be my differentiator. But I'm going to take the audio and bolster my video rankings using audio. So that's key. So to me, that's a really cool way to kind of leverage both. The next thing, we have this thing called Pay It Forward Friday. Pay It Forward Friday, for those of you guys that don't know, is a really cool. This, quite frankly, has like almost. I mean, it really doesn't have anything to do with business. I can't help it. I love doing it, right? So every Friday we go out on camera and we do something nice for other people. We do a random act of kindness on camera. They're oftentimes funny. They're short. They're 5-minute clips, and we're going to launch this at the same time. Like this for me, my life on fire is. I love having the time freedom to be able to do this every week. So this show, quite frankly, doesn't really have a whole lot to do with business. However, it's a really cool concept, and people like watching them. People like sharing them. And what I love about it is it's inspiring for other people because we're building up an audience of people that are also paying it forward too. So, only thing for this, I will do a separate intro for this, and I'll be like, "Hey, what's going on? This is Nick Unsworth from LifeOnFire.com. You're watching Pay It Forward Friday, and here's why this is cool. But just so that hey, I'm a business coach, all right? And we've got Life on Fire TV, and we've got this whole tactical training series for you. So I will make sure that this points them to that as well. We're going to do a video version of this, and we're going to do an audio version. Now, if it's me running around and I'm literally running around handing out smoothies to people, that's kind of hard for someone to understand via audio. So, we're still going to do the audio version, but all I'm gonna have to do is if I shoot a 5-minute clip and I'm giving out smoothies to different offices and things like that and calling it the juice bomb, I will just narrate it. I will take an extra 5 minutes to narrate what the heck I'm doing in this video and just encourage them to watch the video, right? So it sounds kind of like a lot, but for me, I mean, this is my whole business model. I love sharing content and stuff. So this is why we're doing that, and that is our launch strategy in a nutshell. So this is probably one of the longest trainings I think we've ever done. So we'll be breaking this up into probably 4 parts. Before I wrap up with you guys, I just want to also mention that we decided that we're going to really just lay it out there, and Ryan and I, my team member Ryan Dewey, he's my chief operating officer. He's worked on the multi-million-dollar business. He's ran the whole entire company. He's been running Life on Fire since day one. The guy, we've got a multiple 6-figure business. We came out of the gates and grew really, really fast. This guy is handling so many things. It's almost unbelievable how many different things he's handling. Everything from writing to technology, to our finances and accounting, and our suppliers. So this guy is a wealth of knowledge. Those that meet him in person really, get to see that very quickly. Ryan and I decided that we are going to really try and add some value for our audience, and or not try. We're going to add a ton of value for those that are interested, and we're going to do what we're best at, and that's 30-minute strategy sessions. So if you want to take a look and see what I'm talking about, I'll encourage you to take a look at this episode. It's me doing a hot seat. It's me doing a strategy session live, at my event from a random person. I walked her through literally figuring out what her passion is, to building a business around it, to then creating a strategy with action steps. I mean, this is my craft. This is what I'm really exceptional at. I'm going to put this in the chat box. Boom, 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 boom. And this is something you may want to bookmark and check out to see in action, what I can do, what I'm capable of. And what I'm going to offer you guys is I've got a little survey, just a couple questions. And if you want me to take your business and break it down and help you come up with your launch strategy for your business in 30 minutes, I've got clients that pay $3,000 a month for 2 30-minute sessions. And Shane and Ryan did 62 grand in their first month. Valerie is going to, she'll break six figures, within probably 90 to 100 days, 120 days. And so the sessions it's going to be a random selection. So if you fill out the survey, you enter to get a session with us. Some will be with Ryan, some will be with me. We have those sessions scheduled on our calendar for Tuesday coming up. And here's the process on that. All you've got to do is, if you go to lifeonfiresurvey.com, You go to lifeonfiresurvey.com, fill out a couple question survey. This is going to enter you to be, chosen for a complimentary 30-minute hot seat strategy session. These, again, I've got clients pay $3,000 per month, 12-month contract, to get my brain, to get Ryan's brain on, how can we figure out, what your passion is, what your purpose is, how do we build a business around that, right? Or if you've got a business, how do you go from 6 to 7 figures? How do you, juggle all these things you've got going on? Shoot, maybe you're overworked, maybe you're working 70-hour weeks. How do you get that down to 40, right? How do you outsource graphic design, launch strategy, Facebook marketing? So these are just a handful of topics that we're very, very ninja at, helping you figure out in just a 30-minute session. So these are very, very coveted. We've got plenty of clients that are, I'm sure, also going to want to hop in the mix for this. So again, go to lifeonfiresurvey.com. This is our kind of gift to you guys. This is we want to really, really hook you guys up. We want to just add a ton of value as much as we can. And you go to, again, lifeonfiresurvey.com, and you can check that out. Once you get there, it's a very quick process. You answer a grand total of really 6 questions plus your name. And then what's going to happen is this session, the 30-minute strategy session, you're going to have an opportunity to jump on the calendar. We've got only about 15 total spots available. So this is something you want to do right away, because we're not guaranteeing that this is going to be available for everybody. This is just a kind of a fast action. Fill out the survey. We've got 15 spots available on our calendar for Tuesday coming up, and we've got it blocked off for you guys. So this is a way for us where we're trying to just really, really do everything we can to give you some of the best content we have, give you some of our time, and we're just trying to hook you guys up, trying to do some goodwill and add value. And this is kind of in preps of we're getting our podcast launch ready to rock, and we would love for reviews and that kind of stuff when we get there too. So that is again, lifeonfiresurvey.com. And guys, I know that this was probably one of the longest webinars we've ever done, but there were so many nuggets. We walked through from A to Z, from getting it started to Cliff Ravenscraft, these videos on how to do the tech, but we walked through the whole process all the way to the monetization in the end. And so guys, we had some really amazing speakers on here. We had Michael O'Neill from the Solopreneur Hour, and I want to just have you guys mention that, or mention to you guys that if you go to, I'm going to put it in the chat box. It's solopreneurhour.com/iTunes. If you put their link /iTunes, that's how you're going to get to be able to their show to write a review. So if you go there, what'll happen is that's going to allow you to write the actual review, just like I showed here. So all you guys, if you guys dug what what these guys were sharing here, you just go to whatthespeak.com/iTunes, subscribe, check out these guys' shows, write them a quick review, and be like, hey, I was just hanging with Nick on the webinar. You rock today, and just stand out and write them a great review. Solopreneurhour.com/iTunes. Hop on Michael's show, subscribe. Same thing for Greg Hickman. The guy's amazing. Check out what he's got going on. And again, mobilemixed.com/iTunes. Entrepreneur on Fire, this dude's an absolute crusher, John Lee Dumas, and it's just entrepreneuronfire.com/iTunes. Or you can just go eofire.com/iTunes. So, write some reviews, kind of get yourself immersed in podcasting. We are just at the tip of the iceberg of just, we're going to be sharing all kinds of behind the scenes of how we crank and crush with our show. So hope you guys enjoyed. This was a bit of an immersion on podcasting. Tons of nuggets shared here today. And you guys definitely have a great rest of your day. And make today the day that you make the decision and decide to get your podcast out. pick a date. Do it for yourself. If you're not doing what you absolutely love every single day, or if you feel like you're kind of settling, or you feel like you're ready for a change, make today the day that you decide to live your life on fire and you decide to start that podcast. So it starts with a decision, and then it just takes action from there to make it happen. So make that dream a reality. Love you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you soon. See ya.